And not one motherfucker on this planet. And whatever, dude. They say it's a man's world. I think that's just some bullshit a fucking woman made up to fucking beat down a man. Seriously, everything in culture and every culture, that is just the human condition. Like literally throw away the disposable men willing to die for us because they have so much love in their hearts and blah 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 blah. Like the romantic, because men are actually so much more romantic than women. It's ridiculous. Like y'all have no romance to y'all whatsoever. Basically, like we have to basically beat romance into you. Uh, it's ridiculous. Men are the most romantic fucking creatures in the goddamn universe. Me as a man, especially. Um, and it's like we're just disposable. We're just fucking disposable, and that's just a cliche. That's just how it is, and it's like, and you can't really even bitch about it because that's just the dynamic. That's just the dichotomy. Fucking the men work and die and labor and slave and literally are tormented the whole time by the idols, goddesses, whatever their eye of affection is on. And, and they're treated as if they are not like the heart of beauty itself. And they're treated that way by what they're willing to sacrifice everything for. More often than not, the woman they were in love with. And that woman treats them the shittiest. And the man will literally give everything that his soul can provide, everything that his soul and his body can provide. The man will literally give everything his body can provide, and then goes to step and beyond and provides more with his soul and his spirit and his life. And basically, just like there was this video on um, TikTok or something, Instagram. This this Twitch chick was, I'm pretty sure it was a fake thing, but this Twitch chick was like playing video games or whatever, and like she gets a message, and this guy's sent her $100,000, and he's just like, oh, I can't wait to run away with you forever, and you'll be my love, and blah blah blah, and I just gave you all my life savings because I know you're worth it, and blah 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 blah. And she was just like, oh, thanks, dude. Um, enjoy poverty, bitch. And then she turned to the left, and she was just like, hey, babe, we got $100,000. And it's like, there was the most, I know it was probably staged. Um, that it was like, I don't think it was actually a real thing that happened, but well, in that video anyway, I'm sure something very similar happens all the time every day, and it's the most disgusting thing I've ever known. Just the idea, the man giving his life savings to some Twitch chick, um, and then you know, oh, thanks for the money, dude. Enjoy poverty, bitch. Like it's I really I know like I use comedy a lot and like it's like a pretty big important thing to me, and it is because I really don't know how I would survive if I couldn't find the funniness in the worst possible things. And honestly, that seriously the highlights the absolute worst, like almost like a prenup or the worst like contract or something. Like it's seriously the worst setup possible. Like, and it's just the worst dynamic, or it's the worst relationship. It's the worst dynamic possible. Man gives woman life savings. Woman basically, enjoy poverty, bitch. Like, okay, yeah, I'll take all your shit and not even thank you for it. I'll abandon you. And like, and I don't want that to be this, but that doesn't mean it isn't. Because, like, I honestly do think that, I've never heard this story anywhere, so it's just like a own little kind of made up delusion, I guess. I just kind of feel it, and I really hope every single day that I'm wrong, because that is the worst. That is going to be the worst existence possible, and it's going to be a tragedy. But no matter how no matter how funny it is, it's it's ultimately going to be like a tragedy, like the tragedy. It's the god of comedy, and the creation of everything by the god of comedy. And because the god of comedy in my head was like this image of like some guy's head in the clouds and his mouth open with his eyes closed. And I typed into an AI art generator. I was like, "Hey, do me an image of the god of comedy," and it printed up that exact fucking image, the like almost exact image that I had in my head. And it's like, the one God thing doesn't make as much sense to me as the one mouth thing. The God of It's like, okay, like the God of comedy isn't the only God, but when it comes to the gods, he is the only mouth. Like there's no way to the Father but through me kind of scenario, like one mouth, uh, like one martyr, like one mouth, one person to blame, one person to thank, one it's basically like the god of comedy and all his cruel godless grape jokes and all his cruel vigilante clown jokes and all his cruel attorney at law jokes and all his cruel little eternities, so imperfect, so perfectly imbalanced against people's hearts and natures a lot of times, that it's like, how could you even say it's a joke? I just, and a lot of times when I say joke, I mean it in that sense. It is, it's like almost like proposing a question, like, is this a joke? Do you think this is a joke? And, sometimes it's me posing the question, or like, kind of being a little rhetorical, a little both, but jokes are just basically, it's crazy because I am a joke. and like the god of comedy himself is a joke, and his one mouth is a joke, but it's so serious. It's like more serious than anything possible. And the gods and goddesses of heaven, as they rejoiced in their infinite hubris and beauty, looked through a empty, dark void to another eternity parallel to theirs that they called hell. And and the god of comedy, given that it's his nature to heal, to inspire enthusiasm, to help ensue bliss and pure joy through the healing power and awesome might of laughter and humor, and it's just in its bliss in its purest form when you just naturally are laughing. Um, his way of communicating through this empty dark void to hell was with jokes, like other gods of love and goddesses of love. They would communicate through that void to with love, and gods of war and goddesses of war would communicate through that void with war and attacks. Okay, so to the gods, praying is all forms of communication at once. Um, they 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 prayed. That's how they all were able to communicate through this dark void, this empty void or whatever. Basically, the universe. Um, but but it's basically all the gods and goddesses of heaven praying is like, not only is it all forms of communication at once, it's kind of like a text message, or it's kind of just like like a message. Like, no, it's kind of like but it's like you're texting your being, your entire being, along with every form of communication at once. So like, it's like a statement, it's a threat, it's a declaration, it's a question, it's a but it's an exclamation, it's like all different types of communication. It's a joke, so collectively all the gods and goddesses wanted to travel through this void to make it to hell, to the other eternity, to see what was going on over there in the other eternity. Um, so they all made a prayer together. So each god and each goddess made one of every type of communication for themselves, for each individual god and goddess to themselves. They made every single form of communication, one of every single form of communication, um, by which they could travel through this void on or in or of as um, as all of them as their prayer, as their actual prayer. So they all the gods and goddesses basically combined all their prayers to make a mass gather to make a mass what's called exodus from heaven to hell. Um, and they traveled through the void that is now the universe, because all when they collectively made their prayer and were basically hopping ship out of heaven, um, they created everything from the Big Bang. Boom. Basically, the Big Bang is everything, right? So it's every form of communication, every type of communication at once in one big bang. But there was like some politics stuff going on because there was like gods of wars and stuff, and basically the god of war and the god of comedy um, are enemies, and the god of comedy was tricked because being a god, um, in heaven, being a god or being a goddess is just like either being a man or being a woman, of that kind of plane or of existence. So basically, God just means man, and goddess just means woman. So basically, like the god of comedy is like the man of comedy, and like the god of war is like the man of war. Um, so basically, it's kind of hard to explain because I was never told this story. It's just kind of something I felt over the years. But basically, you know, I'm not a soldier. I'm not. I've never technically fought in any wars. Um, I've told more jokes than I have negotiated terms of engagement. Um, but I mean, I've made more jokes than I've made war cries on a battlefield. But as a man, you could say like my nature is kind of just war. Like that is just kind of like the nature of a man is nothing, is conflict basically. Inner turmoil, outer turmoil, constant fight. If you're a man, it's a constant fight. So so basically like the god of comedy kind of also is the god of war or became the god of war. Basically within the subconscious of the collective prayer of the gods and the goddesses was like a war, or like psychological warfare, but it was as a spiritual psychological warfare of the subconscious, but it was of the collective prayer. So it was like all of their prayers combined into the collective prayer, and then it was the collective prayers subconscious at war with itself, which is kind of the demiurge or whatever, the heart of like all that is wrong in the universe, all that is wrong from their prayer, the gods and goddesses prayer, the subconscious of the collective goddess and goddess prayer from heaven used to travel through the void, um, is the is basically the cause of evil, and it boils down to basically the god of war, one of the gods of war, but the main god of war, uh, always hated the god of comedy. It was a passion and was always very envious of the god of comedy because he was always happy and he was always making people laugh. And, he just was always giving off them positive, good vibes because he done glowed up, and the god of comedy um, had a wife, the goddess of comedy. Incidentally, um, they it kind of matched. They kind of matched up, and basically in the subconscious war of the collective prayer of the gods and goddesses, um, the god of comedy had it real bad because everybody was gunning for his wife. And not just his wife, although it was majority that too, but just his overall, like, people were or the gods and goddesses were just basically jealous of just the joy he could produce and the bliss he could produce and the bliss and the bliss that he had not only accumulated but managed to keep, uh, his wife, his children, and the god of war was very envious of that, and in the subconscious collective prayer of the gods and goddesses, the god of comedy was basically tricked by his wife for one. There's like a cheating aspect going on with that, like she cheated on him or whatever with the god of war, um, and basically like the god of comedy was hacked in a sense. His basically he had nowhere to hide in the subconscious of the collective prayer of the gods and goddesses. He had nowhere to hide basically, and people or the gods and goddesses took advantage of his kind nature and it being as how it was exposed, and and basically just destroyed his heart through his woman and his kids and stuff and his family, and just like the heart of him, the joy of him, his ability to make people laugh, his ability to find the humor in things, and he was slowly destroyed. So as he slowly, became as he slowly, as his humor slowly dissipated over the eons of being whittled down to nothing. Um, while that was happening, of course, he was still the god of comedy and made a lot of weaponized jokes. Basically, they're just weaponized jokes. He made a lot of hero jokes, and he called him Hero. Um, kind of because like they ate away. He couldn't hide anywhere, and he couldn't hide his love for sex with his woman, and basically his hero is her O. Dun-dun-dun. So there's that joke, which wasn't necessarily weaponized on purpose, but probably needed to be weaponized, or maybe not needed to be. Maybe that's one of the reasons why a lot of shit went to hell. But a lot of hero jokes, definitely a lot of hero jokes, a lot of mythological hero jokes. Um, and basically, I'm kind of a hero joke. Um, and all hero jokes are kind of like have a built-in martyrdom complex and a god complex, and we're very sacrificial, um, and we're just chock full of metal. So this is kind of a newer concept that has been developing in my head. Actually, just kind of like now. Just it kind of just developed now, but that's why, like the withering away of the god of comedy and the subconscious of the collective prayer of the gods and the goddesses through his inability to mask parts of himself, um, kind of is like a reoccurring is the overall theme or the motif, the overall the reoccurring. Yeah, it pops up a lot, um, because it was kind of his downfall was his heart that was just kind of exposed. Um, so it occurs a lot. It reoccurs a lot, especially in hero jokes. Um, that's why like the whole hero victim villain dynamic is so vital and important because it's just real. Because heroes are victims that decided to do something about it, and well, so are villains, but it's just how they approach doing something about it. But basically, inherently in every hero joke, they're chock full of metal. They've got the martyrdom thing going on. They got the martyrdom complex, the god complex. They're very self-absorbed, very arrogant, and very vulnerable, uh, because they're self-righteous and they don't they don't care to put their vulnerability out in the open. And that's technically why they're hero jokes, because like that was what was the downfall of the god of comedy, what ultimately brought evil into the world, uh, was was his inability to mask his vulnerabilities to others. And uh, heroes, in the hero jokes anyway, it's like their self righteousness is kind of the joke, because you think, well, I'm righteous, and my heart is pure, my intentions are pure, I mean no harm, so why not let it be known to the whole world? So what basically the heroes are heroes because they voluntarily reveal their vulnerability to the world, and ultimately can overcome that and save the day because the god of comedy couldn't. And um, it's actually like it's fucked up and it's sad, and it's like I didn't just like write all this, like I had to process this. I didn't write any of this down. None of it's written. I didn't like just invent this off the top of my head. Like these are, I've had to unbox this over the past couple years. So basically, not all hero jokes anyway, but there are some there are some hero jokes, like vigilante clown jokes, for instance, or like attorney at law jokes, for instance. Um, there are certain kind of jokes, hero jokes, that that it's like it's like magic. It's like magic because it's like the whole point of traveling, jumping ship from heaven and trying to go to hell. I'm not really sure their reasoning for wanting to abandon heaven and go to hell or this other eternity that was on the other side of the void. But it's like it's like since it was all communications, all forms of communication at once, um, it's like it's like every form of communication then is magic. And you could look at a joke as a funny thing, or you could look at it as just like any other form of communication. Because in the overall grand scheme of things, all communications, all forms of communication at one time is one communication. So like a joke, a statement, a poem, it really just kind of boils down to the magic of communication and words. Especially since like, humor is kind of like art in that it's subjective. What one person thinks is funny, another person might not think is funny, and the majority of people might not think a certain thing is funny, but it might actually be kind of funny. And, one person might think, something is completely unfunny and all of society would disagree. So really, when I say joke, when I make jokes, what is my intention? Well, what does funny equate into that in my jokes? Well, my jokes, obviously, I want my jokes to be funny or have something funny about them, even if it's just like a strange observation I pointed out, or like highlighting a certain something in a strange way or in a kind of comical way or whatever. Ultimately, ultimately, with humor and jokes and stuff, I'm kind of like a traditionalist when it comes to bliss and like trying to, and incite laughter and bliss and stuff like that. It's kind of comes from a place of purity, of like of hope and joy, and the good emotions, good stuff. Jokes aren't meant to hurt people. Not my jokes. I'm not trying to hurt anybody anyway. I can see how some of them are a little bit weaponized to a degree, and some of them, that's more of like a self defense thing as opposed to like trying to cause harm. But jokes don't have to be funny. Jokes don't have to be funny, but if a joke isn't funny and isn't bettering somebody's life or bettering society or highlighting something strange, or basically your joke doesn't have to be funny for it to have importance or for it to have merit or for it to change lives or for it to have any noticeable effects on the world. Um, but if your if your joke isn't funny and doesn't do all those things or any of those things, then what the fuck kind of a communication is that? Because it's like if you're not okay, well if you're not bettering the world or causing a good change and it's not funny, then it's probably destructive. And then at that point, you can go ahead and just take out the word joke, um, because there is just a certain point where shit ain't funny and doing nobody any good, and in fact is only detrimental to any and everyone. And my point is, Gay Black Dads, the musical on ice, may be our only defense against the most godless grape joke there can be. And I think you know what I'm talking about. Um, and I support Gay Black Dads and Musical on Ice. That's my army. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's not my only army. Um, no, because Thugs in Love, um, although that was just kind of a little musical group I put together with my friend Drew and his friend Patrick. Well, and we were all white, um, just singing about fucking niggas in the butt and shit, and like making love to niggas in tubs while we eating subs and shit, fucking around in the suds, making love with my bud, eating subs, um, that kind of shit. Um, so I mean, like a rap group or a R&B kind of group isn't technically an army, um, but just the concept of Thugs in Love, could be on par with Gay Black Dads and Musical on Ice. Certainly, they could be aligned. Um, but the Thugs in Love part kind of does imply more of a violent aspect, and a more violent aspect that Gay Black Dads does not really get across. Gay Black Dads kind of gets across like flamboyantly, uh, flamboyancy, kind of Gay Black Dads. Thugs in Love kind of gives off a murderous, dangerous kind of vibe. Not that Gay Black Dads aren't dangerous, by no means, but point being, I know crazy white bitches probably are not on my side. That's almost kind of too obvious that crazy white bitches are not on my side, which it kind of tears in my heart and my soul, because like basically that is my reminder that I'm the god of comedy, and crazy white bitches is just basically franchises within franchises of my wretched, evil, treacherous wife, who betrayed me with the God of War and everybody else and all my kin and kith, and basically ravaged me till I was nothing. Um, so yeah, crazy white bitches more than likely are not on Clint's side. Um, Especially crazy white bitches HQ, um, aka Megan, um, aka the goddess of comedy, aka um, uh, yeah, a lot of similarities I've noticed between me and the god of comedy, if not exact up what it is. So basically, it's like I have some black communities black community jokes that I support, jokes that I crafted, that I invented, that I created. Um, I'm still a little shook. I'm still a little shook about this the godless great joke. Like the gang rape, murder ethos culture, gang rape culture, murder ethos culture, whatever the mixture. Um, because that basically, in a nutshell, just describes like the legions of demons, uh, eagerly awaiting their time to strike and gang rape everybody. Um, so it's like Gay Black Dads, a Musical on Ice, Thugs in Love, I'm just saying, since all this shit's kind of wackadoo anyway, and it's all kind of on the precipice of what is reality and what is existence, imagination land basically, and imagination land becoming reality at the end of time, or when we all die, or whatever, revelations, or like judgment day or whatever. um yeah, because it is a big war, like Valhalla or whatever, all the Norse gods and stuff, and the war gods. And so yeah, basically in the subconscious of the collective prayer of the gods and goddesses, there were many wars, but there was a main war, basically for control of everything. And the god of war tricked the god of comedy, into aligning with him. And basically, what happened was the god of comedy made some jokes, weaponized. He created certain jokes, mm, quite a few certain jokes, um, from the intention of them being a weapon, which kind of like was his biggest blunder, or the biggest tragedy. Well, not the biggest tragedy, I guess. Just his whole overall story is the biggest tragedy. But basically, the God of War tricked him into weaponizing, or rather, not weaponizing, because it's not like they were jokes that were then weaponized. These jokes were created intentionally as weapons, and probably were made funny afterwards to mask their true intentions for, espionage and stuff and such like that. So it's like these jokes. I have no clue what they could even be. I have no example of them. Now maybe it could be godless grape jokes. I think those are definitely kind of like weaponized a little bit, if not created intentionally as weapons. They were weaponized a bit, a bit. And the franchise. Um, now that I'm just going to go ahead and be honest with you right now. That was just me defending myself from the last recording. Well, what was actually kind of an attack on you, and well, I don't want to say all women, because I didn't invent bits. I didn't invent what a bit is, and I didn't invent bits. And I certainly did create the franchise. That franchise is my creation. I came up with the franchise. I don't care what anybody else saying. I'm claiming that one. That one's mine. Um, Here's your foreskin. And what I'm what I'm saying is, I don't know if this is just natural, or if this is part of the weaponization of jokes, or if this is just was like the nature of humor, of the creation of humorous jokes in general, just how you create them. Um, but there are jokes and there are bits. A joke is like a male or a man, more masculine, or a tool, rather. No gender, just a tool or a weapon. A tool basically. A joke is a tool slash weapon. A bit is kind of like a straight man, or a or yeah, like a straight man, like who's on first? Like the person that isn't funny, the person more often than not, female, that is not funny. Um, maybe maybe not that they're not funny. It's just it's like it's like the setup, not the setup. It's like the like they don't get the punchlines. Like they're the ones asking all the questions, like who crossed the road? Oh, I guess the chicken, or and then like the other person says something funny based off like the question or the whatever the initial, you know, whatever the initial setup is. So like why did the chicken cross the road? That that's like the bit, and then the joke is to get the other side or whatever, whatever the punchline is. Which that kind of makes sense. When it comes to more masculine and feminine roles, anyway. Like guys are the punchlines. We're the ones doing the punching. Um, you just keep us focused on what we need to do, or you just keep us you keep us in line so we know what to punch. Like that kind of makes sense anyway. But basically, also bits, and this is very important when it comes to turds. When it comes to turds and the god of comedy, and and the one mouth. Um, basically, bits are women, jokes are men, because men sure as fuck ain't eating no turds. Sure as fuck, dead ass. The person more often than not, female. Basically, more often than not, in generalities, um, if somebody's going to be having to eat a turd, um, it more than likely won't be a man. Um, More than likely, well, see, and then that's a tricky one too, because obviously, especially with hero jokes, um, nobody with a soul is going to sit there and just watch somebody eat a turd, or watch someone forcefully be fed a turd, like shoved down their throats. Um, you know, no true hero joke can just sit by and let that happen, however funny it may be. Um, but see, but the thing about bits are is like there's a martyrdom aspect to bits, because it's like did you bite the turd? Well, just a bit. Like they're willing to they're willingly they're basically willing and wanting to eat the turd for their man, so the man don't have to eat the turd. Uh, basically, never happening. Uh, kind of just like women in real life. But point being, I don't know what the point being is, but I'm pretty sure I